Thanks, Noah.
Started working that, so.
Yeah.
I've done talk about that. I think that's someone without credibility.
Do we start or do we wait?
Do you want to find out?
I don't think they're working at all. It's not on standby. They still have somebody coming in to help with the technical issues. My turn.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Real quick, do some introductions here. To my right, Superintendent Degner, Directors Pilcher, Hayek, Eastham, and Williams. To my left, Vice President Malone, Directors Clausen and Finch, and Recording Secretary Kim Colvin. I'd like to take a second. This past weekend saw the passing of two members of our ICCSD community. Charlie Bates was a freshman at West High. I didn't know Charlie, but I read through the obituary and I saw that found a love of music and a talent for music and theater. And our thoughts are with his family and friends. We also lost Skylar Moss, who was a City High alum and a coach in various sports at City High. Lover of all sports, baseball being primary. So again, our thoughts are with Skylar's family and friends. And if you indulge me, we'd take a brief moment of silence to remember them in our own way. Thank you, everyone. So we can get right into our meeting, and sorry to make you follow that, students, but we do have our student representative update, and we can start with Liberty.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Beatrice Kasky, and I'll be serving as Liberty's representative for today. We haven't seen each other in a while, so I'll just get right started. We got lots to share with you. So in preparation for Valentine's Day, our interactive students helping out our community, otherwise known as InShock, otherwise known as our volunteering club, is currently running a Candygram drive. So during lunch periods, all students can buy notes to send to their friends during Valentine's Day next Monday during 6th period. All proceeds will be going to the club's mission of providing students countless opportunities for volunteering and community development. Over this past year, InShock has had members making dog toys for the Humane Society, wrapping gifts at the Coral Ridge Mall, and providing regular service of meals for families at the Ronald McDonald House. We're very proud of this club and the opportunities that they provide. In other club news, our large group state speech contest happened this past weekend, and Liberty sent 2 out of the 3 large group speech events after they earned a Division I rating at their regionals. Our winter dance will also be taking place this upcoming week, so students are very excited. And for sports, students have been loving going to the boys and girls basketball games, especially this one this evening against Limmar. At our past doubleheader against City, Liberty, West, and City students teamed together to host a voter registration drive outside of the game. Although Liberty lost the voter registration competition, I'm still excited to say that 32 students are now newly registered. Speaking of sports, the Liberty High varsity and junior varsity dance teams competed at nationals this past week. Our varsity team took 13th in the nation for Palms, and our JV team took 6th in their division. The Trojan Bolts boys swimming team won the MVC swimming title and spent the past weekend at district qualifiers. We're super excited to support boys from both schools as they compete at state this week. Liberty also received an amazing donation from the North Liberty Wrestling Club to sponsor a girls program in the upcoming years. Inspired by the work done around the district, the school is excited about providing the opportunities for all persons at Liberty to join wrestling. In other news, the choir department will be hosting a concert tomorrow and have been spending lots of time doing show choir performances over these past weekends. As for our band department, the Liberty Jazz Ensemble performed at the Simpson College Jazz Festival with many soloists selected, and other selected students performed with the prestigious Southeast Iowa Bandmasters Association District Honor Band, otherwise known as SEBA. And with all this gorgeous weather lately, Liberty has been looking forward to the possibilities of spring. Xanadu, our spring musical, has already been cast. It will be an 80s roller skating fun, so I hope to see you all there. And then our science teachers, Miss McGrain and Miss Chaprewicz, created a pollination habitat that will be going into our school garden in the spring in order to provide an opportunity for students to learn about the importance of protecting our pollinators. Lastly, I did want to say that our hearts go out to the families and friends of City High and West High students as they go through difficult losses in the past few weeks. We know that our communities are strengthened by each and every student in our hallways and offer deep condolences and support during this time. Thank you for always letting me share and for your continued support. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next up, Tate High. Looking around. Okay. Is there anyone from West High? All right, well, how about City High?
Hi, my name is Rebecca McKaylee, and I'm one of the co-class presidents at City High.
Hi, my name is Ayla Bashir, and I'm the other co-class president at City High. And we want to thank you guys for having us here today. To start us off, our robotics team qualified for the state competition for the second time in our school history, and we won the Best Design Award at a regional event. Our mock trial team prepares to defend our state title. Our spring musical rehearsals have also started. It is, I believe, Big Fish has been cast. And then Student Senate is planning on hosting a blood drive in partnership with the DeGowan Blood Center later this spring, I believe. I think late April is when we are trying to shoot for that.
Both of our show choirs have also competed the past 3 weekends in a row. And at our last competition, before last, 4th Ave, which is our varsity group, won grand champs, and our band won best band. And our Charisma, our JV group, also performed excellent. They got first in their division. Interact Club is hosting a winter gear and a peanut butter and jelly drive, so that's very interesting this year. Women's bowling won the Mississippi Valley Conference title, which was exciting, and women's basketball also won the MVC title for the 9th year in a row. Also in Student Senate, we are working on planning our Valentine's Day dance. That's coming up at the end of this month, and 25% of all ticket sales are going to the Crisis Center this year. We also had a Tampon Tuesday this morning and have now raised over $300 to buy products for our school. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we can move on to our ICEA update. Brady?
Hi, good evening. Brady Shutt, President of Iowa City Education Association, President Isone, Vice President Malone, Superintendent Degner, directors, thanks for having me tonight. I'd like to just do a formal public recognition of all of our school counselors and all of the staff that work with them. This is School Counselor Week, and our counselors have always been, of course, incredibly important. I think we probably have realized that even more and more as the pandemic has gone through. So just a shout out to all of those folks, just the tremendous work that they do in helping support all of our students and our staff in really challenging times. I'd also like to, just for the public, just keep us all attentive on the actions of the legislature. The Omnibus Education Bill, Senate Study Bill 3080 is now moving its way through, and our position on most of those measures is to be, respectfully in opposition, and hope that we can continue the conversation so that we can fully fund public education. We're supportive of 5% SSA that would match what the corporate tax break plans of the governor and the Senate are at this particular point of about $300 billion. So, that's sort of where our position is. We're hopeful that we can engage the public. I think it's important. There's a lot of conversation about some of the other bills that are out there, but not to overquote some movie quotes, but I think we just need to make sure we're following the money on some of these things that relate to vouchers and things like that. So I thank all of you for your advocacy and the legislative priorities, and urge the public to stay engaged. Thanks.
Thank you, Brady. We can move into community comment. I'd like to remind everybody that they will have 4 minutes to speak, and there should be timers up on the screens to let you know when your time is running low. And also a reminder to make sure you're speaking to the microphone at the podium and address your comments to the board. First up, Dan Ramsey.
Good evening. I'm Dan Ramsey. I represent Teamsters 238 and the Iowa City School Bus Drivers. On behalf of all the Iowa City School Bus Drivers, thank you, thank you, thank you. We realize that you didn't have to do this, and we greatly appreciate the recognition and inclusion. We have been side by side with all district staff in facing the challenges brought about by this pandemic, and we feel that we are respected and appreciated member of the district family. So thank you very much again.
All right, thank you. Next up, Joseph Dobrian.
Joseph Dobrian, 1015 2nd Avenue. School districts all over this country have made a horrible, grotesque mistake, abusing some millions of children by forcing them to mask up like extras in a low-budget science fiction movie, a mandate that doesn't offer children the slightest protection against a virus that has a survival rate of something like 99.999% in their age cohort. Instead of admitting their mistake, many school administrators, governmental authorities, and even ordinary parents are currently doubling down on their demands for mask mandates. Why is that, when it's generally agreed by all people with a lick of sense that masks don't protect the wearer or the people nearby? Why? Because it's hard to accept that they have damaged your children for nothing. It's hard to accept that they stole your children's first day of kindergarten, their Little League championship, their junior, senior prom, their chance at an athletic scholarship, for nothing. Some people insist that COVID has to be super dangerous, super deadly, because if it ain't, it means that they were wrong. Being wrong has cost our children more dearly than we can imagine, and those people know it. So instead of facing their mistake and saying, I was wrong, and trying to fix the damage they've done, they are going to double down, because acknowledging the devastation that their mistake has wreaked is far too painful. They want you and your children to keep wearing the mask indefinitely, not because they're right, but because they know they're wrong. They know that all along. They have been absurdly wrong. And they insist that we keep wearing the masks so that they won't feel so embarrassed. Pride is the queen of all sins and the most destructive of all sins. I speak from experience. Pride is a sin that I struggle with every day of my life. It's the sin that invariably tops my list when I make confession to my parish priest every couple of weeks. I understand about pride. I understand how hard it can be to humble yourself and publicly claim, I made a terrible mistake. I was a bloody fool. I've done irreparable harm. But ask yourself this: how wrong do those people have to be? And for how long do they have to be wrong before we can no longer get away with crying, I believe in science, as though that slogan magically proved your righteousness? Ladies and gentlemen, this charade must end. This mandate that continues to be inflicted on millions of American children has been exposed as a fraudulent atrocity. The wearing of masks and the social distancing are nothing but performative manifestations, partly political and partly religious. Stop this madness now and make whatever amends can be made for having stolen 2 years of these children's education, mental stability, and social development. I ask God's blessings on your deliberations. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
All right, next up, Alana Chaprewicz.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Alana Chaprewicz. I am here to represent students with disabilities, as well as the paraprofessionals and the teachers that work with these students. I am a mother of 2 students who attend the school district, as well as a building substitute teacher. And I could only truthfully speak on behalf of preschool all the way up to 6th grade. So I am here and quite frustrated, and I hear all the time that equity is such a major concern in our school and mental health, but yet here is a marginalized group where I do not see any equity. I do not see people thinking about mental health at all. We have a gross amount of people who are absent that are paraprofessionals, which to me is a reflection of our community. We cannot hire enough paraprofessionals or teachers to fill these positions. Once again, I think it's a reflection of our community, and it's hard to retain these people. Nothing is taken into consideration about the students who have no voice. Either they can't communicate through the lack of understanding how to communicate their emotions, or verbally they can't communicate. Some students go home, I will use an example, and we are not told. There's no transparency. One of my sons is supposed to have a para, not one, all year long. Coming home, hysterically crying. My kid is unable to explain this to me. He cannot explain emotions. I have another kid who is on the spectrum too. So it's a quick domino effect in my family, which perpetuates consistently. I know right now, I tell people, and the first reaction to everybody is, but there's so many teachers out. That proves my point exactly. We have not had enough paras and special ed teachers for a long time. And for that to be people's excuse, finally there's an excuse for COVID, I mean, it just breaks my heart. I'm a building sub. And I mean, we're talking about retention and retaining people. December 15th, we got, would you like this assignment? Either I plan to work at this building or I resign. The second thing we get is, first of all, nothing was asked of us as an assignee about my protections or obligations at all. We have benefits, like sick benefits, dentists, so on and so forth. That's the only thing that was given to us. Then the next letter we receive from the district is building subs need to be there as much as teachers do. And we have to punch out at certain times. If not, we will be docked the hours. And we are only supposed to work 7:40 to the 3:15, which is ridiculous because everyone knows good teachers come early to set up their rooms. And then the most recent one, and I'm talking and telling you this because it kind of ties into everything, is the hierarchy of where building subs go. Building subs are really no longer building subs. Since there is a shortage of teachers, building subs are
All right,
told.
thank you, Alana. That's your time. If you have some further comments, feel free to email them to the board.
Okay, thanks.
All right, next up, we have Noah. And Noah, when you come up, can you give your last name, please?
I mean, you can find it, like, you can go searching for that, but, like, I'm not going to easily give that up, just for my own personal safety. First and foremost, I'm just going to address Joseph real quickly.
No, you're going to address
yes,
the board.
Yes, I am, actually. Masks are not oppression, and only bizarre right-wing weirdos think it is. Okay, now to y'all. Zoom is absolutely ADA compliant, JP. Go talk to the county attorney at the city of Iowa City and the Johnson County's attorney about that, because those are two other elected bodies in this county that have hybrid meetings. So don't give me that excuse ever again, please. That makes you look like a fool, because it's not based in like the actual reality of life, because there are two other elected bodies in the same county that you are elected in that have that. It's ridiculous to don't give me that excuse. That is the worst excuse you probably, that is a lot worse excuse than like the funding excuse. That feels like that's even like less based in reality. And now onto the funding issue is, the estimate I was given was like the max is $200,000, which honestly I'm pretty skeptical that would cost that much, but I'm not a technical expert, so I obviously can't like give you like, anyways. But this district has over $100 million budget every year. You have your cash levy, which I realize the cash levy is there for like having the cash levy and stuff, but like $200,000 of the current, I'm sorry, on the website, online, all I could find was the 2019-2020 budget, and the cash levy was 11 point something million. So $200,000 of just that account would not be coming out of the classroom. That would be like a very small, not very, a pretty small percentage of like of the cash levy, just one place you could get the money from for having, if it was at the high assessment of $200K to have hybrid meetings. So like the cost excuse really is not a very good excuse. If you had the will to have hybrid meetings, you could find that money pretty easily in the budget. You could. I don't, just like, don't give me excuses. Just tell me that you don't care enough to do it. I don't need to hear excuses about cost or ADA or whatever. Just say that we don't want to do it. Don't make excuses for it. Just say we just don't want to be accessible, because that's what the actual reality of it is. Because like the excuses I've been given are not legitimate excuses. I think we all know that. We're all adults here. We all know the excuses that you have given to me are not legitimate ones. There's no reason you should be forcing people to come here in the midst of a pandemic to speak to you. And not just in pandemic, that just makes it worse, because like risking the lives factor of it is what makes what the damn pandemic does. So like just like have hybrid meetings. It's not that hard. Like I mean, Iowa City Council did it finally, and my advocacy worked, by the way, JP, because they have it now. Just wanted to get that out there. So don't tell me they don't work. When again, that's not based in the reality. I want you to actually, like, if you want me to believe that you actually care about the disabled community, then act on it. I need to see some action. I'm tired of being told that I'm heard, I'm listened to, we hear you, when there's no action actually done on what people talk about. It is insulting, absolutely insulting, to be told constantly, we hear you with whatever their stuff, when there's no action done on that. It actually makes it worse if you tell people, we're listening, we hear you, and then nothing's ever done on it. Like that is worse. You just don't even like acknowledge the fact that you're listening. Like he's obviously. I'm done speaking now. Thank you.
All right, next up, Dan Cobble.
Hi, school board members. My name is Dan Cobble, and I would just like to say thank you all for just following the science and just kind of following medical advice during the pandemic to keep children, their families, and your staff safe. Because, I mean, I think if anyone says you should apologize for not sending kids to school during the height of the pandemic, making them wear masks during the height of the pandemic without vaccines, I think that's goofy. Regarding hybrid meetings, I think that, and meetings in general, I think that this body is really terrible, not only in regards to just engagement and accessibility for that, but just civic engagement in general. Because for folks to even watch a school board meeting, not even take part, sometimes the videos of these meetings can be posted up to 2 weeks after the meeting occurs. Now, in the world that we live in, major events can happen during school board meetings where someone finds out, hey, this just happened, I want to see footage of it. Having to wait 2 weeks for that is really unacceptable. Regarding people being able to actually engage with these meetings via hybrid meetings with Zoom, I think it's really irresponsible for this board not to pursue that. The zeitgeist in this town right now is to do that. I mean, you see Corryville, the officials there have been moving towards that. Iowa City has just enacted hybrid meetings. The Board of Supervisors has been doing that for quite a while. And I think it's really irresponsible for the school board not to do that. And I think the benefits of enacting that system, can even be seen from the last school board meeting, which was canceled. Because if you have the network in place to have hybrid meetings, it would be very easy just to switch to having, if there's a snow day, having a meeting during that snow day. And I believe the cost was estimated to be $200,000 to enact these changes. I see computers, I see cameras, I see speakers. I don't know where that number of 200,000 is coming from. Because, I think that it seems that you have the equipment for it. And even if you had to pay like several grand for it, I think it's very easy to go out there and try to find a grant to cover those costs. So I guess basically where there's a will, there's a way, and I just hope that the board moves towards being more equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. That is it for our community comment section, so we can move in to our agenda, and first up is the approval of tonight's agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you, Kim. Next up is our very long consent agenda, 2 meetings worth. I know there was a lot of bills to review over the last 4 weeks. Did anybody have any questions on those that they would like to bring up? All right, any items that directors would like to pull from consent? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we pass the consent agenda. Second.
All right, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right. Next up, we do have a public hearing, and I will turn it over to Vice President Malone.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2022 SEJH Kitchen Renovation Project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on January 11, 2022. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on January 12, 2022, and February 2nd, 2022. The district will receive bids on this project at 10 a.m. on February 1st at the Facilities Management Office located at 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa 52246. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City School District website on January 12, 2022. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
All right, we can close this public hearing. Next up, we can move into policy review. So at our last P&G meeting, we did have it last week. We started the first run through of the 400s. I think it's the first time the 400s have now come before the board. there were a few minor changes and then some policies that were, I think this is where our vaccination requirement policies were residing, I believe. And so there was some discussion as to whether or not we leave them in and they're just not applied because we're in a state where we can't apply them, because I think that's what it says in the policy, or do we strike them from it? So that was a conversation we wanted to have with the board. But I want to put a plug in for all of the work that, I'm going to pat myself on the back, but the previous P&G committee, when they got the 400s done the first time, there was a significant amount of time and effort put in by the committee along with Brady and Chase and a lot of the admin team to get it done, to the point where when we went through them at our P&G meeting last time, they're like, yep, that still looks pretty good. So I felt like there was a lot of good work put into that. So I don't know if you wanted something, a bigger conversation around those vaccine policies, Matt. Did I catch that right? It's going to go back to P&G before it comes for the board to adopt again, but I think that was the one piece we really wanted to get feedback on, I thought.
Yeah, I don't think we need anything additional from that. President Eystone, I know there was a 400 policy that we're still working on to have revised before we ask for your approval on that later. Later in the meeting, we'll ask for the 300 series approval, but just a reminder that we're not approving 400 tonight. It's just a discussion point. So still some work to do on a couple of those 400s, but otherwise I think we're set.
Yeah. I guess I was right on that. The vaccination policies are in the 400s, right? Yep. They're in there. My personal take on it would be leave them in there, and if we can't apply them, we can't apply them.
Yeah.
Things change, so I don't want to have to keep putting them in and taking them out if we don't have to. It's already got the line in it to when you can apply it. So that'd be my personal take on it. But I'd totally listen if somebody wanted to go a different direction. I don't know, did anybody have any other things on the 400s that they wanted to send back to P&G?
I just reiterate the appreciation for the work. It's a very heavy lift, and and I like how thorough it is. You know, it really covers all the bases. So, especially in this day and age of, we can't bargain some of these things. So.
Yep. All right. So we can.
John, I have one other.
Go ahead.
Just one thing to mention, since it's in the discussion item. I was looking for the number there. I believe it's 405.8. Just a reminder that connects to our equity updates that we've provided on a monthly basis about trying to work through those additional standards or how we code that in policy for expectations around our employees, whether the leaders or other licensed employees. So that was a part of that P&G conversation as well. So just a reminder there that that's one of the ones in the 400 series we're working to bring back some revisions on, so it reflects that work.
Yep, thanks for that, Matt. All right, so let's move on to 300s. That stuff did get, at least a line got added to the 300s, I know, in that regard. We brought the 300s last month to the board. There were some other minor changes also in there. So you'll see it here in our review, but then it is down in our action items to adopt it. But if there's conversation to have around any of it, now would be the time. I don't think we changed anything after I went back the second time, other than, did we add that line?
Yeah, we'd added some language in there about leading through an anti-racist lens and some other equity language that you'll find reflected in the administrator policies. Remember, the administrator standard switched from 6 to 10 standards, and so this one deals significantly with the superintendent's evaluation and then our administrators, but there's also some equity language changes we had made in those policies and reviewed with P&G.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All right, let's move into our discussion items. First up is our health and safety update.
Quit turning my microphone off here. I just turn it off and turn it on. Health and safety wise for you tonight, the update is pretty brief. I think that most are aware, but we'll state it for the public's interest tonight, that the U.S. Appellate Court had sent the mask requirement case that we were named in back to U.S. District Court. And so because we are named in that case and how it applies to entitled students, our position has been, under the advice of counsel, to leave the mask requirement in place for the time being until we get further direction from U.S. District Court in opinion or rules and direction from the Department of Ed following that. So we're in somewhat of a holding pattern there with the mask requirement until that time. But that's our most substantive update for this evening around the health and safety. Maybe another piece I could share with you. We know the governor had stated this week that some of the COVID data tracking sites would no longer be functional. Kristen and I talked to the team this week that we'll be able to still continue to provide some data on our end. Of course, we won't have that 14-day positivity number that's been provided on the website in conjunction with our numbers, but we'll continue to try to track that information the best we can. And if we run into some problems with that, we'd bring that back to you.
Yeah, I kept reading that the data's available in other places, and I don't know if that's true necessarily, but if we were to find a place, it's going to be apples and oranges. But if we can find something that's going to report positivity, I think we should. I don't know where it's at. I'm told the county might have it somewhere. I don't know. If we can find.
And that was something we went through early in the pandemic. President Eystone was, or maybe it wasn't as early in the pandemic, maybe it was towards the end of last school year, but people were talking about accuracy of the state data and lag in some of their information and recommending other sites to go to. And we'd stayed pretty consistent with those state data sites because, like you said, comparing apples to oranges or picking and choosing which source to look at. So for us, I think the theme would be continue to report out our information, and then I think people will probably gravitate to some other sites where they still might be able to find that data. But I think what'll be best approach for us, or what I would recommend, is continue to report out the school-based data with our students and staff the best we can.
Can we maybe just, if we do find a couple of sources, whether, how much we verify it or not, but even just put links on our dashboard where we have our data and say, hey, if you want to look at, outside our district's data, here's some places you can find it, and then it's easy for people to look if they want to.
Yeah, we could talk to the folks, I'm kind of speaking for Chase and Kristen here and Jess a little bit too, but I think I'd talk to these guys and we would really probably go back to the health department and say, hey, is this a reliable link we should be sharing with the community? So I think we'd still want some blessing from them on that before we'd start pushing out that data, so that it's not like we're picking and choosing which ones. So we would work with the health department on that to say, hey, are these some viable links we could share with people if they want more information?
I think that's wise.
But otherwise, that's all I have health and safety related, but we'd be happy to take any questions or concerns that have come up.
Directors? All right. We can move on. We do have our equity update next.
Sure, and so Amy's going to lead this, but I know she's going to quickly turn it over probably to Patrick Snyder, who's joined us in the back there. So welcome, Patrick, into our meeting this evening, but I'll let her go ahead and do the formal introduction there and tell you about the topic we're diving into tonight.
Actually, Matt did a great job there. I don't think I have anything additional to share. Patrick has been instrumental in helping to implement the brand new elementary social studies curriculum this year, and so he's going to share a bit more about that, what we've adopted, and what that's looked like for our teaching staff as well as our students.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Patrick Snyder. I'm the elementary science and social studies curriculum coordinator. And as you know, we're implementing Inquiry Journeys, our new program for elementary social studies instruction. It is an inquiry-based learning program, and it aims to really support culturally responsive instruction and really aims to provide experiences beyond a textbook. So we're looking for rigorous and sustained investigations, activities, and experiences for all of our kids. It's led by units and modules that are driven by compelling and supportive questions. Students develop questions not only from the program, they have questions in the program, and the students develop them themselves. So, and then the informed action project at the end is where students can showcase creatively how they can take informed action and impact their communities. So in this update, I hope to include bright spots, areas for growth, and some actions that we're taking. Starting off with the bright spots. Vast majority of the feedback I'm getting is that there's a dramatic increase in collaboration between colleagues around social studies instruction, which is very exciting. We're also very much deepening the content knowledge our teachers and students have of inquiry as an instructional strategy. Deepening the understanding of our social studies standards through Iowa Core social studies standards with both inquiry and content standards has been very instrumental in the work that we've done this year. And some of the most noticeable things that we see in our buildings are visual displays of learning. So students showcasing in creative ways what they're being more informed with now and the knowledge that they're learning. Another exciting bright spot is we have a lot of collaboration with our teacher librarians who are not only creating a repository of books to support all K-6 classrooms, but they're also, in some cases, co-teaching with teachers in the classrooms and providing deeper connections for all of our learners. On the bright spots of students, like I said, some of the most noticeable things are visual displays of student learning showcased in classrooms, buildings, and throughout the community. There's an intentional focus in this program of maximizing students discussing the content with their peers and reflecting upon what they're learning and their experiences. So really being affirmed in that and reflective of everything that has led up to that learning and showcasing what has happened in their lives that they can connect to. Lots of structured in-class discussions that support our signature SEL practices. That's a really exciting component of this. So it's exciting that the work that we're doing around social emotional learning and equity really complements the work that we are doing within social studies. So it's exciting that we're engaging with that as a district. As I said, this supports culturally responsive instruction. There's increased learning times for students to listen and practice and use social and academic language with their teachers and their peers. We support higher order thinking and complement the work, again, that we're doing around all of our professional learning in the district. There is a variety of media within the lessons, which is very enriching and engaging for the students. That includes articles, handouts, websites, videos, everything. And that is a very engaging, enriching way for students to interact and engage with the content. The students are responding very positively to these different forms of media through the investigations, and that is really helping them deepen their understanding and learning. And like I said, the informed action projects are purposeful public actions that students are taking to respond to a challenge raised by inquiry. They help students transform their knowledge into action and connect it with their lived experiences. These might include posters, murals, bumper stickers, memes, GIFs, artifacts, dioramas that they're creating, even skits and plays, presentations, speeches, poems, expository writing, and we're even working on our own virtual field trips. That's pretty fun for them. Some growth areas. It is an online platform, and there are many advantages to an online platform, notably how responsive the program can be when we can find new or better or more inclusive content to include. That being said, it's easily accessible and adaptable, and with physical collections, adapting to more inclusive videos and articles can be a much bigger challenge. But that can oftentimes feel clunky for teachers who were elementary teachers. We like things in our hands, and we find ourselves printing things off and having some challenges that way. Pacing and time. Elementary teachers, there's never enough time to do everything that you want to do and everything that's important to do. So teachers are tasked with many, many important things that are taking their time and attention, and interacting and learning with a new program is an additional challenge. And that's all normal for year one of implementation as well. So in many cases, teachers are acknowledging that the lessons are taking longer than the program suggests, and sometimes that's due to the high interest in engaging conversations and discussions happening with students, and it's hard to cut them off on that. So all of those are normal challenges for year one of implementation and things that we can do to take action on, like continued professional learning. Every elementary has an inquiry advocate, a social studies representative, and we get monthly coaching calls from Inquire Ed, our company that we're working with. We often have virtual office hours. We help facilitate and play in with PLC discussions and offer bite-sized professional learning, and we even have upcoming district professional learning as well. Additionally, Inquire Ed is also listening and adapting their platform to respond to some of the feedback that we've given them. So over the summer, some of the challenges that teachers have been faced with this year, we're hoping will be solved with some of those updates to their platform. And teachers are great teachers. They're finding ways and discovering ways to adapt to their classrooms. We're finding those interdisciplinary approaches, which is best practice anyway. So we're finding how social studies connects to our morning meetings, and social studies connects to our literacy priority standards. And our teachers continue to be great with this. So with that said, as you're very aware, teachers have challenges every year, and I find myself thankful and proud and excited. On top of all of the challenges of every year, this year has presented even more challenges for them. So expecting them to understand and implement a new program is taking things all to a new level. It's a substantial task, and they're doing a great job with it. So I'm very grateful for the teachers and leaders who are taking this on. It's important work, it's tough work, but it's the right work. And I'm proud of the work, especially students who are really rising to the task. We have students that are growing and learning and thriving with social studies because of the work their teachers are doing. So I'm excited about the continued work ahead of us. We're going to continue to build the capacity of our teachers to deliver and facilitate this learning. And I want to thank everybody here that is supporting us with this implementation of this important work also. So, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Amy, did you have some more you wanted to? All right, I'll throw it out there to directors.
I thought that was a great, thorough presentation, and thanks for doing that. Thanks for giving us all that information. And I also like to hear that you're feeling really good about it. So that's great. Just to make sure I heard you right, you said it's an online platform. So does that mean, and I know I'm going to sound 100 years old, there's no book?
That's correct.
And is that sort of the sport of the future? Is that what it's going to be like now? Kind of? Is that normal?
It feels like that is a realistic option for our future, and that's a difficult thing to overcome sometimes, but in this program, they are able to adapt when they find new content, new websites, new articles that are more inclusive and supportive of what we're really trying to do. So with physical copies of things, it's really hard to change that.
But they do work with their teacher librarian, Sue Brady, with physical books. I mean, so there are books. It's probably, I think in social studies, I'm 120 probably, and the 200-page tome that you would carry around is probably a thing in the past. But I think that what you can do is you can build out a lot of different options then, because you have an online platform that's adaptable and that is updated much more frequently, so we don't sit with physical books that are 10 years old. But then, you look at supplemental materials and things like that. So it actually is probably a better, way to do it. You get to pick off of a menu a little bit differently. So I think, I would say that probably is the direction that most of the textbooks are going, so.
That's a great explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I appreciate it. I think this is a great example of, we kind of we were reactive in this sense, right? Something happened and we reacted to it, but this is something really positive that comes out of it. I'm really excited about, and it's nice, I think, as a board to understand that, all of our kids are kind of getting this type of thing, whereas before I think it would just varied so much school by school, and who knew what was going on in any individual school unless you had a connection there. And so this way we really have an idea, but it's not like this prescriptive thing that everybody's doing the same thing. It can be really tailored to the needs of the group. I mean, that's my understanding. And so I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to kind of see where this goes and how this kind of helps, develop those critical thinkers that we're looking to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, great point. And that's one of the beauty parts about inquiry learning is that it's not scripted and it's structured inquiry. It's not just, students exploring whatever they want, whenever they want. There's structure to it, and the teacher becomes the facilitator and really a good listener to what the students are learning.
I guess that does give me a question. Is there room for kids to do some of their own exploration that is self-directed? I am interested in this topic, and so there's some space and time set aside for kids to dig into something they just happen to be interested in.
Yes, absolutely. And,
Okay.
and typically, the teacher guides that more towards the focus question that is driving the unit, but the students do have the opportunity to come up with their own inquiry questions, and that informed action project is a chance to really dive in and explore what they are passionate about and interested in, and then showcase their learning that way.
That's exciting. Thanks.
Thank you for the question.
Just in reference to the online aspect of this curriculum, which again, I think Brady and staff led a great curriculum review process to get us to this place. So I think we're in a much better place, as JP I think said, than we were several months ago. But looking at the online aspect, I assume that most kids have adequate online capabilities within their classroom. So if they want to do additional things, or if they want to do assign things, they have the wherewithal to do that. If they're at home and they want to do something, are we able to assure ourselves that all kids have adequate online resources at their home, so if they want to do something that they can do it from there?
Yeah, great question. So I should clarify that this online platform is a teacher platform, so there aren't student accounts or anything like that. So a teacher does have the capability of posting things through ClassLink or Google Classroom or Canvas or anything like that. So as long as the student has their Chromebook, they should have access to what they need. I hope that helps answer that question.
And if they have a Chromebook, they could get access either in school or at home?
Yes.
Right, Charlie, and we've continued to address that Wi-Fi need like we did at the onset of the pandemic with those mobile spots. And so, right, those Chromebooks, if there was something the teacher felt they were needing to do at home, then those Chromebooks would travel home with them. That's not necessarily the norm always. Like, I know my own child doesn't bring hers home every day, right? But if there was something that was going to need to be done, and then we've continued to try to address that online need as well. So good question.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to take this moment to remind us all, like in the performer days, we really need to eat these mics, because sometimes the playback video, it's hard to hear what people are saying with the transcript. So we've got the technology, and just in the interest of that, let's try to get right up in that mic. Don't be shy.
All right, thanks.
Anything further?
President Isom, speaking of Ethan, I'd just like to give a shout out to Patrick. He's done a tremendous job. Part of the outgrowth of the curriculum review process was a recommendation from the team to have a dedicated person working with elementary. And Patrick, is as good as we're going to find in terms of leadership in our district. And he's probably being modest. He's doing all the social studies. He's also doing science. I think you have a little piece maybe of health, computer science, and there's a whole lot going on. But he has done, I'm sure Diane would attest to this, just a tremendous job. So he really, it's a wonderful program that we found. I think the teachers are fantastic, but you need someone who's a really strong leader facilitating it, and Patrick is that person. So yeah, thanks to Patrick.
Thanks, Brady. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you all.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next item. Again, you'll see something here in our discussion items that you'll see again in the action items, but this is the Be Smart resolution that some folks brought before us a few meetings ago at this point. I don't know if somebody wants to speak to it better than I to speak to it, or just throw it out there to conversation to folks.
I'm appreciative of the local chapter of Moms Demand Action to bring it to the board to ask us to take action. And just to clarify, it's not a stance either way on whether or not somebody owns guns. It's just really about educating our families and our students about firearms safety, because we read a lot about accidental shootings in the home where children may find an unattended gun. And if this prevents one of those incidents here in Iowa City, I would greatly appreciate it. Because as a mom, that was one thing that we always did with our daughter before we sent her anywhere, much to her embarrassment, is ask those questions about firearms in a home, if they're secured. Is ammunition stored separately? It's important for families to have that as a normal part of getting to know other families, and not that you're some weirdo anti-gun person, because it's not taking a stance on what another family chooses to do, but it's about keeping kids safe and people in the home safe. So I don't think any of them are here tonight, but I just want to go on record and thank the Johnson County Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, thanks, Ruthina. I would just point out suicide prevention as well. That, this is one of the most important questions we can ask, is that if you have a gun, is it locked? And I really appreciate certainly the folks that brought it and the way they developed this initiative and the thoughtfulness behind it and the emphasis on safety without getting political. I think that's really important. And with just the sheer number of guns that exist in the country and in the state, it's just important, I think, for everybody to understand some pretty basic fundamentals about them and some pretty easy, safety measures people can take if they just were made aware, and to bring people's mind to it. So I also very much appreciate this.
Sorry, I forgot one thing. And thanks to Lisa and Director Williams and Kristen for taking that stab at making sure to craft the resolution that we see in front of us tonight.
I've asked the question before, and I'll ask it again since we're going to vote on it here later in the meeting, because it is directing, some work for you and the team, Matt. And I want to make sure that you feel comfortable in the work you need to do and the logistics of how to make it happen, and you know how to move forward. I mean, it's updating handbooks and it talks about a thing at registration time. I know we talked about, we have all these other questions that parents need to check yes or no that they understand at that point. That we feel good about the steps we need to take to accomplish these things.
Yeah, we do, and this is the right time to be doing it as we prepare for the next school year. Believe it or not, in February, that's where a lot of our conversations start to shift to at this time of year, and so this is the right time to do it, and we can get it incorporated into our processes for next year and get those communications slated and ready to go. So I think our team feels good about the responsibilities on there and the spirit behind this as well.
All right. Very good. Anything further, directors? All right, let's move on to our presentations, and it is the annual comprehensive financial report. Les told me I can call it the audit report. That's a lot less wordy.
That is correct, President Eystone. You can also call it the ACFR.
Yeah, I'm going to go with audit report.
Before I introduce the RSM team tonight to do the presentation, I'd just like to thank district staff, especially in the business office, as well as the administrative team that helped gather evidence for the audit, as well as the RSM team. They complied with our health and safety protocols with their team on site and everything of that as well. So they were a team player in everything that we did, and so I'd appreciate what they did. So with that, I'll turn it over to them. You do have a hard copy of the presentation at your desk tonight, so you have extra reading material if you ever need it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heidi Habkirk and Tebble Lawrence for the presentation.
Hi, thank you for having us this evening. I'm Heidi Habkirk, and I have with me Tebble Lawrence. We were part of your audit team this year, and tonight, if I can, there we go. We're going to have a brief agenda that we're going to go through a high-level summary of your June 30th, 2021 financial performance, and then we'll report on your compliance reporting results, and then the auditor communications. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tebble, and she's going to cover some financial information.
Before I start with the financial information, so the audit report name, so it used to be the comprehensive annual financial report, but due to some guidance with the governing organizations, it's now the annual comprehensive financial report. That does not affect any of the past reports, so you don't have to go back for name changes or anything. And then on the revenue slide, you'll see that total revenue increased $20,323,297, or about 9.3% in all revenue. And it's driven by an increase of $9,208,441, or 9% in local taxes, $8,436,882, or 124.3% in federal sources, and $3,636,642, or 3.6% in state sources. This is due to the increase in property taxes for local taxes and additional aid mainly related to COVID-19 in federal and state sources. Then in expenditures for all the governmental funds, a decrease in total expenditures of $13,429,345, or 4.6%. The main change in expenditures was a result of a decrease in capital outlay of $21,920,527, or 26.8%. An increase in special education of $4,004,596, or 10.1%. An increase in instructional services of $1,082,052, or 10.1%. And an increase in debt service of $2,003,867, or 8.7%. The decrease in capital outlay is due to construction projects being completed. The increase in special instruction and instructional services is due to increased salaries and benefits, as well as instructional materials and technology that was purchased during the pandemic. The increase in debt service is due to a full year of principal and interest on the Series 2020 GO bonds. And then for the general fund, you'll see that there was an increase in unassigned funding of $4,777,231. Keep in mind that this is the general fund as of June 30th, 2021, so it has changed since then. And then the majority of the funds is unassigned, but there is a portion that is restricted, and the restricted amounts are required to be used for those specific purposes. Then when we're looking at the changes in net position, the decrease in operating revenue of $1,770,692, or 81.4%, was driven by the school shutdowns related to COVID-19, as well as free meals, which decreased the a la carte purchases. An increase in non-operating revenue of $1,024,039, or 23%, was driven by increased federal appropriations as part of the COVID-19 response. And then effective in April 2020 and for all of the 2020-2021 school year, the nutrition program was funded by federal reimbursements since all meals were provided for free. The federal reimbursements are categorized as non-operating revenue versus parent-paid meals being operating revenues. In addition, the revenues and expenditures were down as total fewer meals were served due to the district offering the online learning option and hybrid delivery to students. Online students would not have participated in meals unless they also participated in the Grab and Go program. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Heidi.
That last slide was specific to the student or the school nutrition fund, just to clarify there. That's reported a little bit differently. Next, I'm going to report on the compliance reporting. So first, under the government auditing standards, this is where we look at your internal controls over financial reporting. And this year, you did have a material weakness that was related to an overstatement of construction in progress. As the district personnel was preparing for this year's end, they realized that there was an error within that balance, which part of it was corrected in the current year, but part of it related to the prior year and had to have a restatement of your opening net position for governmental activities. Because the internal control process did not catch that error timely, a material weakness is reported, and that's required under the auditing standards because of the material nature of the dollar amount. Then for the state compliance reporting, there's more details in the financial statements on pages 111 through 118. Based on our testing that we did, those procedures that are dictated by the state auditors of Iowa, we found no instances of non-compliance. Then we also look at your federal expenditures, those grants that you receive through the federal government or through pass-through entities. This single audit has us take a look at what we call major programs in more detail. So this year we looked at the ESSER and the IDEA programs in more detail. And as a result of that audit, we provided an unmodified or clean opinion on both programs. And then both of them also had no instances of non-compliance that had to be reported based on our testing of compliance requirements. And that did provide us about a 50% coverage of the total federal dollars that you expended during the fiscal year. So then the last piece we're going to present on tonight is the auditor communication to the board officials. First is to let you know you received an unmodified or clean opinion on your financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2021. I do want to indicate you also adopted a new GASB standard. So those are the accounting standards that Leslie has to abide by and report under. As a result of that, there was also a restatement due to that implementation. There was some change in the definition of fiduciary activities. So some fiduciary activities that you reported in the past as an agency fund no longer met the definition because the standard setters changed those definitions. So that had to move into the general fund. That was about $85,000 that moved into the general fund, so not a lot of dollars. There are management judgments and estimates that are included within your financial statements. As with all financial statements, as part of our audit process, we look at those that are significant. We do our own testing, come up with our own estimates. And based on our testing, we believe all of management's estimates are reasonable as of year end. There were no audit adjustments that were proposed through the audit process, but we did have a couple areas that we found some errors. We presented those to management, and they determined they were not material to the financial statements, and we concurred with that assessment. So what we do is we have to report those as uncorrected misstatements in the current year, and then those will be corrected in the fiscal year 2022 financial statements. Those were related to pension liability. There was calculation error in the spreadsheet, and then also some revenue and receivable cutoff within the student nutrition fund. We had no disagreements with management through the audit process, nor are we aware of any consultation with other accountants. We did not encounter any difficulties performing the audit in the current year. And the only major issues that we discussed with management was that error within the construction in progress that they brought to our attention. So that finishes our formal presentation. I thank you for your time and would open it up to any questions that you have.
As always, I appreciate the time and effort put into this, and I always like to hear them when we're doing a good job. So I would throw it out to directors that had any questions or comments.
I'd just like to thank Leslie and Superintendent Degner and the rest of the staff for managing the finances of the district in a way that is reasonable, required, and meets current auditing standards.
And we'd also like to thank Leslie and all the people throughout the district that provide us information and answer our questions throughout the audit process. We are disruptive to their lives while we're here. So we appreciate all their time and effort too. We couldn't get this completed without them.
I just appreciate the Sunday morning reading you gave me of this very large document. But again, just going through that, and again, appreciation to Leslie and his team for keeping a tight ship. It really takes the load off of a board to know that this part of it is running smoothly with a budget especially this big.
Yep. All right. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we're moving on to our next thing. I guess this was a look back, and now we're going to look forward with our budgets.
Thank you, President Eisner. In front of you, you have the first step in the annual process for the certified budget process, which has to be done by April 15th each year, according to state statute. And so probably the only negative piece of information that we have going into the budget process this year, pending what SSA gets set at, is just that our valuation growth. So that not only will impact our levy to some degree that we do for the general fund and the cash reserve, but also our debt service. Without that growth, our debt service has been dropping the rate by about 6 cents a year. We'll probably be flat this year because of no growth there in the taxable valuation. But other than that, any questions there? We will have information coming at the next board meeting. Then at the end of March, we will publish, as it says in the document, the proposed rate around March 30th in the Press Citizen. And then I think it's April 12th is the meeting closest to April 15th. And that's when we'll ask you to provide or approve the certified budget.
All right. Thanks, Les. Any questions by directors?
No, no questions. I mean, it's all clear. You explained it well, and looks good.
I know that there's been a couple numbers bandied about in Des Moines as to what SSA is going to be. It won't be enough, but we'll get a number at some point. We'll go from there.
If I were a betting man, it's going to be in that range, and they might compromise at 2.4, which is where we are in the third year. And so they haven't really thrown any extra on there. They're focused on income tax relief as opposed to funding schools and some of the other things.
I always just think it's interesting to point out how much those fractions of a percentage make for a difference with when Les shows that table there at the bottom of page, is it 2? Yeah, page 2, and you go between 1.5% and 2.5%, and you see that it generates $1 million difference for the district. And so, you know, sometimes when we're talking to folks in the public, they may not understand what the big deal between 1.5% and 2.5% is, and it displays it right there that it really means $1 million worth of revenue for us, and that impacts our programs for kids significantly, obviously.
All right. If there's no further questions, we can move on. And we get to our action item portion. We have 3 things there. And the first one up is our Be Smart resolution. We had our comments earlier, so I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Be Smart resolution.
Second.
Any further conversation from folks? All right, Kim, I think we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you, Kim. Next up is a request of the SBRC. I don't know, do we need some context from Les or on what this one is?
Yes, this is a slightly different request to the SBRC. In last spring's legislative session, the legislature approved the process to provide some of the ESSER funding that the state holds back, or their portion of it, to schools, and it was going to be managed through the School Budget Review Committee, and that's why we have to go to them with this action, saying, we've already said we want to participate, this is just a formal action on your perspective to get about $325,000. And the reason why it's coming to us now and not then is because it's based upon the change in your preschool enrollment in October of 20 compared to October of 2021. And so those numbers weren't known until here recently when it was finalized. And so that's why the timing of this is kind of late in the normal flow of funding for the district. But one of the good things that this does is this fund's coming in
Thanks, Les. That was a very clear explanation. Unless there's questions, which you're welcome to ask, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the resolution to approve district application to SBRC for the allocation of $325,215 related to increase in SWVPP for FY22.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you. And last, I mentioned earlier, we're going to have our 300 series to adopt with a few edits over the last month. If there's no further discussion on that, I would entertain a motion on that.
I would move approval of the 300 series policies with edits as presented.
Second.
All right. Any comments, questions? All right, Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is our director liaison report, and I'll just open it up if anybody wanted to speak to anything.
Thanks, President Eystone. It's not on here, but I just wanted to share with our administration, especially our team here, that I know earlier in the year we had some rough bumps with some racially charged incidents that took place, and we still have a long way to go. But I've heard from several families and some kids that just wanted to express, especially during this month, that they feel very comfortable going to school as they are, whether it be their natural hair being respected and not being questioned or sent to the office for being unkempt. The celebrations that they see throughout their schools in celebration of Black history, that's our history. Eventually we'll get past it being a month thing, but that they're really proud of some of the work that we are able to do in our district, and that we're allowing our students and our staff have that voice to share some of their beliefs. So that's part of the reason why I did leave a little thank you at your tables tonight. Just to remind you that I know we still have a long way to go, not only as a district, but as a country, but people do feel seen. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Rosina.
Anybody want to follow that?
No, thanks, Rosina.
That's wonderful to hear. It really is. But yes, we still have a lot of work to do too. All right, let's go ahead and move on into our legislative update then. We have a lovely little attachment there. Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah, so you have Kristen's creative genius there with the Standing Strong for Public Education and the logo. I think even some other UEN districts have asked to use something similar, or she's worked with Margaret Buckton there at the UEN to just have districts be able to insert their own logos into this. And so I do think, you know, from a personal perspective, there's a lot of stuff going on in Des Moines that is problematic and demeaning, I think, to the profession and to public education in general. But the public dollars for public education that you can see stated there is critically important. That, you know, we have to support our public schools, and that those are public dollars, and diverting those resources away to private schools and other things in the state is not the purpose of what we're here to do and who we're here to serve. And so that's the focus, as you can tell there, but there's also the other legislative priorities that we've talked about before. It sets a number at the SSA for 5%. You heard Brady talk about that earlier tonight, and it kind of stipulates the difference between Where that 5% would go, speaking specifically to inflation, right? I mean, we haven't seen a period of inflation for a period of time, and that's going to change all of our costs on the side. So when we continue to get numbers of 2.25 or 2.5, like Les is talking about, and inflation is at closer to 6 and 7%, that's a problem, right? I mean, that math problem doesn't wash. And so really trying to state clearly there that 5% is what would be needed and necessary. Talking about 4-year-old preschool, no vouchers that I already touched on. Mental health services, we know coming off the pandemic, and I also think we were on the cusp of this, honestly, before the pandemic, seeing what kids were presenting for needs in our school district, that we're just going to have a larger awareness around mental health, and then the need to continue to support that as an institution. And then the restoration of Chapter 20, you know, that's something I know our district has worked hard to continue to guarantee a lot of the promises that were in there, but that was something that was taken out several years ago by the state, and so I think that's one to kind of display that we haven't forgotten mantra a little bit about what had happened there. And so this is a long history of doing, you know, several things on the state level that have been, I think, harmful to public schools, but really I think the one that we're really trying to draw attention through the visualization of that flyer is the vouchers conversation. And like I said, we could go on and on about all the different problematic situations that are being discussed or potential problematic implications of what could come from those. But focusing on the funding and then obviously where those funds go, I think is important. So open it up for your discussion, but that's what we present to you this evening.
I just want to say that I think our district, and good job on this, it's really nice, Kristen, you did a really nice job on it. Our district is serving as a beacon in Iowa, as being a leader in the issues named here, including the mental health issue. I'm really proud of our district's meaningful efforts to find ways to help our kids and our staff. I think that we've never, as adults, I don't think we've ever really had to think about it so much. This has just been such a strange time for everyone. Our district is leading the way in taking it so seriously. And I think that for the community that isn't at these meetings, perhaps if they have a chance to watch it, I just know I've received a lot of questions about whether or not our district is supporting the teachers who have been the recipients of the vitriol from the state. I'm also very proud of our district because I know that we stand by our teachers and that we will have their back. And I just think, again, we lead by doing that. That's the only way to make education successful, is to stand by our teachers, and our administration does that and our school board does that.
The content's great. I'm not going to talk about the content because we knew it was going to be great. Kristen, I really like the front page. Everybody knows I love a one-pager. I'm so excited we got the star in the right place. Like we did. That shows the capability of learning. And I really like the blue coloring. I like that we're pulling that through from the Ray Gun t-shirts that supported the foundation, and that we're seeing that as kind of our cohesive messaging when we're talking about the district as a whole. I think sometimes we get lost that we're not one district, that we talk about our feeder schools. So the visual of this is really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks great. I think the piece you spoke to, Matt, about just trying to keep up with inflation, like we haven't really kept up with inflation in our funding for years. And this year, it's real bad. Like, I mean, it's always been tight, but it's going to be painful, I think. I'm very concerned about it. And I know I just paid my gas bill, and right on there says your average cost per day last year and your average cost per day this year, and it was $2 versus $6. Mm-hmm. Right? That's huge. And I'm just heating one small building. So if we haven't been able to keep up with previous inflation, it's very concerning to me that we're not going to keep up with this year and probably a couple years before things really start to flatten out. So I think the funding is important because the consequence of that, right, is not enough people in the buildings serving our students. And we heard tonight about some of the consequences of that, right? So I think we have to continually push as Matt said, that the public funds are public schools, and there's a reason why, because there's real people at stake there if we don't have the money, right? So that is the biggest piece to it. Everything else, all these things that are, out there, just that catches our eye and we're like, I can't believe that's happening. Remember, this piece has been happening forever, it seems like, but it's been a decade plus, right, of this inadequate funding. So we do have to keep that first and foremost, I think.
And we're doing everything we can to fight it. But in the meantime, I just think we always have to remember that's why what all of you do is so important. And it's easy to get down in the dumps because it doesn't feel appreciated in terms of the funding we received. And in fact, it's probably not. But our only connection to making change is what we can do on a daily basis. And you guys are all doing it, and you're inspiring the teachers to do it, and we have to keep doing that. And hopefully, we can right the ship in terms of funding. We all very much want to do that.
Anything further from directors on that item?
Looks great. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, I really want to agree with everything that you're saying here from our perspective. And my almost agony in the last few months has been that I don't think we have been able. I don't think we have been able to tell teachers and paras and other members of our instructional staff, our district staff, that we do appreciate what you're doing. We know what you're doing. We love it. I think the students love it when they're not being critical of us. And we will do everything we can. I'm convinced as a board, we will do everything we can, to protect you from what the state legislature, people in the state legislature, are trying to do to public schools in this state. We will continue to stand by you and stand with you. I hope you believe that. Again, I've been in this state for a long time, 40 plus years, and I remember, when our kids went to school in this state, this was an entirely different school system, entirely different approach to public education than there is now. And we will bring that back. That will come back at some point. We know we will do that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll give a quick shout out to our community. When you see the school board meetings around the country and some of the things that are happening that are dangerous, threatening, violent, to know that, we do have a community that is supportive of our district and supportive of our teachers. I think that's what gives us, obviously, the ability to be very strongly in support of our teachers, to the point of coming up with policies like we just reviewed tonight, that protect our teachers. And I don't know that we could get the message out enough that we do have your back. We'll do whatever we can, obviously for the funding. But then I do think this cultural assault on the profession is equally damaging. I think that's driving a lot of people away. And I think whatever we can do to support, listening to the update on our social studies curriculum and all the great things that are happening, we do as a team. We've been doing this obviously also with the pandemic and with this sort of cultural war that's going on, and you all are doing this really, really well, making our job as easy as it can be, I think. And so I appreciate the community, the board members, and the staff. And yeah, whatever we can do to get that message out. Maka, thanks for drafting that letter. I think we'll keep fighting it. I think sometimes when we say something from Johnson County, sometimes it puts a target on us and might have a little backfire, but we're going to keep saying it because what we're talking about is true. And we're not going to give in to these false narratives about what's going on in our classrooms. I want people to see what's going on in our classrooms. I think having cameras there is ridiculous and silly, but come on by, stop by, see what's happening in kids' schools. Come to parent-teacher conferences. And so I'm optimistic about where we're headed, and we're just going to keep fighting the fight.
Agreed. I mean, if you're your narrative is that public schools are failing, and then your reaction is to underfund them to feed that narrative even more, right? We have been successful despite that, and we will continue to do that. It's just getting harder, but we're gonna keep doing it.
Exactly. Public schools are doing more than they've ever done, right? I think that's the thing we have to remember. And so whatever measure you want to look at them with, we're doing more, tasked with more, and doing a better job of it than ever before. And I think, to your point, JP, about getting outside of the Johnson County aspect is talking to our rural folks. We have to bridge that divide between the urban and rural conversation. But it should be viewed as an emergency in rural Iowa about what will happen with public dollars diverted away from public education. And I'm not sure it's viewed that way right now, but that'll kill main streets in towns. That will hurt, and it hurt in a different way than some of the challenges that will be presented to us in Iowa City with those things. So I think the more talking to each other we can do and trying to have conversations and not just say this is right, this is wrong, but just trying to share, hey, these are likely consequences, right, of those decisions, and just make sure people are as informed as they can be. So good conversation again, but I would just continue to push back when people want to say public schools are failing. We're doing more today than we've ever done and doing a better job with it than we've ever done before. The challenge just keeps getting steeper.
We could get on that soapbox all night long, but I'm getting tired. So with that, let's move on into our agenda setting. We've got a few meetings coming up there. We do have an Ed Committee meeting next week, and Kim got on there with the location and the time. We are at an elementary school, so it does start early, so pay attention to that. I want to thank whoever got it to be the 4th closest elementary school to my house, but it is at 4 o'clock next week, and we're going to talk about preschool. We discussed that a little bit at our work session earlier. And then the following week, we have our P&G committee meeting. We'll take our second look at the 400s and our first look at the 500 series. And so then they'll come to the board later. And then we do have our regular board meeting also on the 22nd. And I'm scrolling down to see, we have pretty much, our normal things there. Our health and safety update, our equity update. Looks like we have another, budget update. And the quarterly financial report got kicked to that next meeting. Is there anything else that we need to add on there, either from directors or the admin team? Any thoughts for future meetings from folks that we want to just kind of get some placeholders in for future meetings?
Yeah, I would like to, if we can, try to highlight some sort of, whether it's a curriculum highlight or something happening in the classroom that our district is doing, so that the board gets to hear about education initiatives that our administration and our staff are working on. I think we have to always remember that's what we're here for, that we're here to be the best educators in the state. So I'd like to hear more about all the things we're doing in different schools. My kids only go to 3 of them, right? So the more we can hear about that, the better.
Did we say March this week when we talked about that, Amy, that we'd try? So we had talked about trying to do that prior to the spring break meeting, having our first event and almost doing like a school showcase or an education spotlight. I'm not sure what term, but something at the beginning of the meeting to, I think, just do exactly what Maka was talking about, to kind of highlight a program and probably to hear less from us and more from an actual building, about the folks on the ground doing that good work and trying to do some of the presentation that way. So we'll be working to hopefully unveil that in the March timeframe.
The only thing I have, eventually an update at the board table about FMP. Once operations and administration thinks we're at a point that we can further that conversation from here.
No, we just talked about that earlier tonight and I already forgot it.
Yep. I was wondering if we could put a placeholder on a calendar conversation about just a different way to maybe look at our school district calendar and at least start that conversation for what that could potentially look like moving forward in the future, not for next year by any means, but just kind of long-term conversation around that.
Like a big conversation.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah,
Great.
All right, so if there's other things, you know, you can always just send an email or something, but, you know, Matt and Ruthina and I will take it up at agenda setting and see where we can slot some different things in. But if there's other larger conversations, I feel, you know, we're 2 years into talking about COVID, right? And it's necessary that we have to respond to it. But to Maka's point, we're here for education, so I think we need to be very intentional on making sure that we're having some of the larger conversations that we need to have. That's why I was excited to have our work session earlier on FMP and, you know, what that can bring us and stuff. So I would love to hear more of these bigger ideas that we want to have, and we'll try and slot one in at each meeting. And I think they'll be very good for us. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.